Frank Morrison lived in an old brownstone house in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood. This 75-year-old man was a retired teacher. He had a quiet, calm life. Every morning he drank coffee at the same cafe, read the newspaper on the same bench, and returned home at the same hours. But in a drawer in Frank's house was a secret that no one had known for 50 years. That morning, he woke up as usual. While sipping his coffee, he heard the voices of students outside. Harvard University was nearby, and the young people were always lively. As Frank watched them, he remembered his own youth. He had lived a very different youth. The doorbell rang. Frank was surprised. He had very few visitors. When he opened the door, he saw a young woman, about 25 years old, Asian heritage, professionally dressed. She had a folder and voice recorder in her hands. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Sarah Chen, a journalist from the Boston Globe. Could I speak with you about the Vietnam War?" Frank's heart stopped. Sarah. This name had been echoing in his head for 50 years. I don't talk to journalists," Frank said, trying to close the door. "Please, Mr. Morrison, just 5 minutes. I'm telling the stories of Vietnam veterans. I'm trying to give voice to forgotten heroes." Frank hesitated. Sarah. This girl was Sarah, but which Sarah? "Come in," he finally said. They sat in the living room. Sarah placed her voice recorder on the table. "Mr. Morrison, according to our records, you served in Vietnam from 1970 to 1971. 1st Cavalry Division, Alpha Company. Is that correct?" Frank nodded. Remembering those days was painful. "Could you tell me a little about it? What did you experience there?" Frank closed his eyes. 50 years ago. He was a young soldier, 19 years old. He thought he would change the world. "I just did my duty," he said slowly. "But there are some things you can never forget." Sarah was taking notes. What things, for example? Frank looked at her. He could see that this young woman was genuinely trying to understand. "Losing my friends," Frank said, "especially one." "Who was he?" "Danny Williams. He was my best friend. We grew up together, enlisted together. I thought we would die together." Sarah stopped the voice recorder. "What happened to him?" Frank stood up and walked to the window. Life continued outside, but for him, it had stopped 50 years ago. "We were ambushed. In the Mekong Delta, Danny was wounded very badly. I tried to carry him, but—" His voice trailed off. Sarah waited. "Before he died, he gave me something. He took it from his pocket. An unfinished letter. 'Get this to Sarah,' he said. 'Promise me, Frank. Find Sarah.' Then he died." Sarah looked at her pen. She noticed her hands were trembling. "Do you still keep that letter?" Frank looked at her. He knew this question would be asked. "Yes, for 50 years." "Could I see it?" Frank thought for a long time. Then he went upstairs. In his bedroom, he opened a drawer of an old dresser. In the bottom corner was a yellowed envelope. Inside was an unfinished letter. He came downstairs and handed it to Sarah. Sarah took the envelope. She was trembling. On the envelope was written, "Sarah." She took out the letter. "My dearest Sarah," it began. "I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but I want you to know." The letter cut off there, unfinished. "You haven't known which Sarah to give this to for 50 years?" "No," Frank said. "There were many Sarahs in Danny's life. His high school girlfriend Sarah Martinez, his cousin Sarah Williams, his neighbor Sarah Johnson. I never understood which one it was written to." Sarah continued reading the letter. Then she stopped. "Mr. Morrison, this letter was written to me." Frank was surprised. "What do you mean?" Sarah showed the bottom of the letter. There, in very small letters, it said, "Sarah Chen, next life." Frank's heart raced. "This is impossible. You weren't even born then." Sarah smiled, her eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Morrison, my mother was Sarah Chen. Back then she was Sarah Williams. She was Danny Williams' sister." Frank's world spun. "His sister?" "Yes. My mother always told me about Uncle Danny. She said he died in Vietnam, never came back. But I never knew he had written a final letter." Frank sat down. His hands were trembling. "Is your mother still alive?" "She died 5 years ago. Cancer. In her final days, she always talked about Danny. She would say, "I wish I could have said goodbye to him." Frank wiped his eyes. 50 years had passed. Too late. "But," Sarah continued, "I'm here. And now I know my uncle's last words." She opened the letter again. She read aloud. "My dearest Sarah, I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but I want you to know that every star I see here reminds me of home. Remember when we used to lie on the roof and count them? You always found more than me. You always saw beauty where I couldn't. If something happens to me, I want you to know that I'm proud to be your brother. Take care of Mom and Dad. Live the life I can't live. Be happy for both of us. And if someday you have a daughter, tell her about her Uncle Danny who—" The letter cut off there. Sarah was crying. "My mother always told me stories about stars. She said they lay on the roof together, that Danny told her stories." Frank was crying too. After 50 years, he had finally completed his mission. "Sarah," Frank said, "the last thing Danny wanted me to tell you was this. Promise me you'll find her. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm watching her from the stars." Sarah hugged Frank, two strangers sharing the pain of the Vietnam War. "My mother's name became Sarah Chen after marriage," Sarah said, "but she was born Williams, Danny Williams's sister. And you're her daughter, Danny's niece." "Yes, and you kept his last words for 50 years. Frank nodded. "It was my duty. Danny was my best friend." They talked for hours. Frank told stories from Vietnam, what kind of person Danny was, how he laughed, how he fought heroically. Sarah also talked about her mother, how she never forgot Danny, how she lit a candle for him every year on his birthday. "My mother always said, 'Danny is watching me from the star,'" Sarah said, "and she was right, because he sent you to me." "No," Frank said, "you found me. Fate." That evening Sarah went home but left the letter with Frank. "This is yours too," she said. "It was yours for 50 years. You kept it from my mother." The next day Sarah came back. This time she brought photos of Danny, old family photos her mother had kept. "This is Danny at 18, Sarah said, showing a photo. Frank looked at the photo. That young face. It was the last face he saw in Vietnam 50 years ago. "Just like I remembered," he whispered. Sarah pulled out other photos. "This is my mother and Danny, looking at stars on the roof." In the photo, a young girl and her brother were smiling. Innocent, happy. "What were those stories Danny told you?" Frank asked. "They were always about stars. He said every star had a story. Big Dipper, Little Dipper, North Star. 'Sarah,' he would say, 'if I ever go far away, look at the North Star. I'll be there.'" Frank wiped his eyes. "On our last night in Vietnam, Danny was looking at the stars. 'Frank,' he had said, 'if I die, tell Sarah I'm watching her from the North Star.'" Sarah started crying. "My mother looked at the North Star every night. She would say, 'Good night, Danny.' And Danny heard her." From that day on, Frank and Sarah began meeting every week. Frank told stories of Danny's time in Vietnam. Sarah shared what her mother had told her about Danny. Together they visited Danny's grave. They found his name at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Sarah left flowers there. "Uncle Danny," she said to the tombstone, "we never forgot you. Mom loved you so much. And even though I never met you, I learned to see myself through your eyes." Frank stood beside her. "Danny, I completed my mission. I found Sarah. Actually, she found me. You brought us together." 6 months later, Sarah's article in the newspaper was published. It was titled, "The Letter That Waited 50 Years, A Vietnam Veteran's Story of Loyalty." The article received great attention. Many people shared similar stories. Vietnam veterans called Frank. They also said they couldn't find the families of their lost friends. "Maybe we could start a foundation," Sarah said one day, "an organization that delivers lost letters, last words to families." "Danny Williams Foundation," Frank said. "That would be beautiful." They established the foundation. Frank became president, Sarah became general coordinator. The goal was to deliver lost letters and last words from Vietnam veterans to their families. In the first year, they reached 50 families. In the second year, 150. In the third year, 300. Every letter they delivered eased a family's pain. Every last word broke a 50-year silence. "Danny's death wasn't in vain," Frank said one day. "He led us to this work. Sarah nodded. He's still saving people, just in a different way. 2 years later, Frank became ill, heart problems. While hospitalized, Sarah visited him every day. "Frank," she said one day, "if something happens, how should I keep Danny's letter?" Frank smiled. "It's not needed anymore. You're living his story. The foundation is his legacy. Every family we save is proof that Danny continues to live." Frank recovered but was now very old, in his 80s. "Sarah," he said one evening, "I want to tell you something." "What?" Before Danny died, his last words weren't just, "Find Sarah." Sarah looked curiously. He also said this, "If I can't find her, she'll find me, because the Williams family never gives up." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. And he was right. "Yes, you found him. You found me. And now every day you help other families find each other." Now Frank is 85 years old. Sarah is 30. The foundation has grown, with offices all over America. They've reached thousands of families. Every Veterans Day, they visit Danny's grave together. "Uncle Danny," Sarah says each time, "our work continues. Keep guiding us." Frank adds, "Danny, my friend, we left no one behind. I kept my promise." And every night Sarah looks at the North Star, just like her mother did. "Good night, Uncle Danny. Good night, Mom. I continue to follow you." This story shows us that some letters are written not just on paper, but in hearts. Danny Williams's letter found its address after 50 years. But the real message of that letter was that loyalty and love transcend time. Frank Morrison wasn't just a Vietnam veteran, he was also a friend who kept his word. And Sarah Chen wasn't just a journalist, she was also a niece who lived her uncle's legacy. Some promises wait 50 years, but they always reach their destination.